अपनी आन शीस कट जाए। मत झुको अनय पर भले व्योम फट जाए। दो बार नहीं यमराज कंठ धरता है, मरता है जो एक बार ही मरता है। तुम स्वयं मरण के मुख पर चरण धरो रे, जीना हो तो मरने से नहीं डरो रे।
After China's attack on India in 1962, when the nation became docile, these inspiring words were composed by the national poet Ramdhari Singh Dinkar to rekindle people's courage and the feeling of sacrifice. Dinkar is an immortal figure in the world of poetry. During the colonial rule, India needed a wordsmith whose pen could shake up the country's dormant valor and the spirit of freedom. Through the medium of his poetry, Dinkar played the role of a freedom fighter to perfection. In the history of Indian literature, patriotic poems were also written in Hindi prior to Dinkar. But with Dinkar emerged a new and vigorous artistic expression that inspired the nation to stand up with courage, self-respect and resolve to attain freedom from slavery. On 23rd September 1908, an extraordinary child, Ramdhari Dinkar, was born in the family of an ordinary farmer in Simaria village in Munger district of Bihar on the banks of the river Ganga. Dinkar received his primary education in his village. He passed his matriculation from the high school at Mokama Ghat and obtained his BA degree from Patna College, affiliated to the University of Patna. Dinkar was barely 2 years old when he lost his father, and then his family was overcome by financial difficulties. Later, in order to support his family, he started working as a principal in a high school. He continued to serve his family and settled down in Patna. The poet inside him was born right during his student days. And during his lifetime, he remained wedded to literature and poetry.
बेचैन है हवाएं हर ओर बेकली है, कोई नहीं बताता किश्ती किधर चली है। मझधार है भंवर है या पास है किनारा, या नाश आ रहा या सौभाग्य का सितारा।
In 1934, he gave up his job of a school teacher and accepted the post of a sub-registrar under the Bihar government. His friends and admirers were greatly upset as their dear poet friend was going to be trapped in the bureaucratic maze. They advised Dinkar to forsake one of the two, either poetry or the job. But true to his mettle, Dinkar sustained both his job and his poetry. This clearly shows that he could not only fight his circumstances, but if required, could also strike a balance between the two extremes. However, as a dedicated poet, Dinkar always put his job at stake, but never his poetry.
जब हृदय हृदय पावक से भर जाएगा, भारत का पूरा पाप उतर जाएगा, देखोगे कितना प्रलय चंड होता है, असिवंत हिंद कितना प्रचंड होता है, बाहों से हम बुद्धि अगाध खाएंगे, धस जाएगी ये धरा अगर चाहेंगे, तूफान हमारे इंगित पर ठहरेंगे, हम जहाँ कहेंगे मेघ वहीं ठहरेंगे।
Dinkar never settled down in one place with a single job. In 1947, he was appointed the Deputy Director of the Publicity Department in the Bihar government. Dinkar had always nurtured a dream of creating an educated human society. So when he was invited to be the Vice Chancellor of the University of Bhagalpur, he happily accepted the offer. However, when he saw petty greed and casteist tendencies plaguing the lofty field of education, he lost no time in sacrificing this coveted post as well. Until 1952, he kept changing jobs. But finally, he contested the Rajya Sabha elections. For 12 long years, he remained a member of parliament from Bihar. In appreciation of Dinkar's deep love for literature, the then Prime Minister of India, Lal Bahadur Shastri, appointed him as Hindi language advisor to the government. In the meantime, Dinkar's place as a revolutionary poet in Hindi had been sealed, and people began reciting every verse that emerged from his patriotic pen. Benumbed ashes of yore have been inflamed, mud swaggers upon wearing the golden crown. Listen to the thunder of time. Vacate the throne, here come the people. Dinkar might have worked for the British, but despite being a government servant, he never let his revolutionary feelings be suppressed, and never renounced his dedication to his own country. In a way, the core objective of his poems was to fortify the national language and national unity. Once he attended an international poetry convention in Warsaw, the capital of Poland. The British poet Laurie Lee rose to recite one of his poems titled Bombay Arrival. As he cast a derisive glance at Dinkar, the Indian rebellious poet spontaneously quipped at him and said, "Mr. Lee, now you should write a poem titled Bombay Departure, since the British have already quit India." Well, this incident amply shows Dinkar's love for his own country and his wrath against colonialism and slavery. Dinkar's admirers and critics included not just writers, but a host of national leaders as well. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru was also one of his friends and admirers. Nehru said, "Each and every word pouring out of Dinkar's pen lends strength to the fervor of nationalism." Dinkar truly personified the glowing sun of the Hindi literary world. By according him the status of a national poet, the nation had in fact honored the national language and had taken a great step towards reinforcing nationalistic fervor. For his outstanding contribution in the field of literature, Dinkar had been honored with several national awards from time to time. In 1959, he was awarded the Padma Bhushan, and in 1973, he was honored with the Jnanpith Award, the supreme honor in the field of Indian literature. Besides this, he has been honored with several awards and honorary degrees from the government as well as several other institutions. On 24th April 1974, this immortal soldier of Hindi literature and a national poet took leave of this world. He bid farewell forever with these lines. I wish to be born as a poet forever and ever, to douse the worldly splendor with the light of my being.
अपनी प्रतिभा के प्रदीप से जग की अमा मिटा जाऊं।